Hey, good evening, all. My name is Barry Kutner W2UP. I've lived in Colorado since 2009, came here from the Philadelphia area, and I've been an active contester, somewhat of a DXer over the years. Have competed in a number of DX contests from my home station on the East Coast. I had a single tower station with two radios, 80-foot tower, 2-element 40 at the top, a pair of TH7s below that. And for the second radio, I had a TH7 at 25 feet. And I use that for tuning for stations while CQing on one band and listening on another band. And that seems to be the trend these days for the top scores. I was fortunate enough to win CQ Worldwide CW first place in the US in, I think, 2003 and 2005, I forget. And ARRL DXCW, I think 2004 and 2006, something around that. And as far as operating now, I'm in a condo living about 30 feet above Jeff Irvin, and I have a fan dipole on my balcony, and that's what I'm using with an Elecraft K3. I got licensed first in 1969 at age 12 with an HW16, did all CW, obviously, as a novice. I upgraded about a year later, took my general and advanced at the same time at the Federal Building in Manhattan. And due to lack of funds, I kept using that HW16 for another 2 years. So I did only CW for the first 3 years of my hamming. And I came across a bunch of guys on the low end of 40 CW that were sending faster than I could copy. So I started listening to them. And eventually I built up my speed and got into QSOs with them. And that's how I built up my speed. When we were talking about this a few weeks ago, Jeff asked me how I did it. And it was basically by just operating, getting on the air and operating. Back in those days, there were no computers and no aids other than being on the air to build up code speed. In my prime, which was probably 20 years ago, I could copy about 120 words a minute. Now I'm down to about 80 or so. And I still get on high-speed schedules on the low end of 40. There's a group of 3 or 4 guys who on Saturday evening, now it's about 6 p.m., it changes based on the daylight, on 7017. There's me, WF3T in Kentucky, NN7CW in Florida, W3GW in New Orleans, and a few other guys. And generally the QSOs go along at about 60 words a minute. And it's a good, good way to just get on the air and operate.
And Barry, at that speed, do you use a bug or a key, or what do you use?
Well, at those speeds, I use a keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's too fast to use a bug or a keyer at 60 words a minute. I can send comfortably on a keyer up to about, I don't know, maybe 45, 50 tops, but it's tough, very tough. And we can get into more on how to improve your code speed later. So we can start the presentation. And Jeff, I'm not seeing it on my screen here. Like when we did this a few weeks ago. I'm not seeing the slide. Any idea?
You might want to click the 3 vertical dots at the bottom of the screen and change your layout.
All right, change layout.
You might want to go to auto, see what that does, or spotlight.
Okay, right now I'm on tiled. Let me try spotlight. Aha, there it is. Okay. All right, so how did I get involved in this? The International Amateur Radio Union High Speed Telegraphy World Championship. Back in the early 2000s, I was chatting on the air with Dave Sumner, K1ZZ, who at the time was CEO and general manager of ARRL. And he's a pretty good CW op himself. And he said to me, have you ever heard of the HST? And I said, no, what is it? And he sent me some information on it. And after a few years, I got involved and went to the first one in 2005. This is a world championship that takes place every 2 years in different countries. This particular one was located in Macedonia, which is one of the Yugoslav republics. And I really had no idea what I was getting into. So I will explain as we go. Next slide, please. Okay, so it's a high-speed telegraphy competition, national teams, up to 27 operators, divided by gender and age. Next. Next slide. So these are the categories for the operators. There are a lot of young people there, mostly from Eastern Europe. And as we get older, there are more Western Europeans and the occasional North American. The senior category starts at age 50, which I think is too young, but that's something I got into with them, but they wouldn't change it. Next, please. So the way the competition is set up for most countries is they have competitions within their own countries to see who's going to compete. And the National Radio Society in each company sponsors the operators, meaning that they pay for it, they send them there, and so forth, except for the United States. I asked ARRL about that, and they said, no, we don't have it in our budget. Next slide. So the HST is made up of 3 different parts. There are receiving tests, transmitting tests, and then what are called radio amateur practicing tests. Next. The receiving test is divided into 3 parts. Letters, and these are all 5-character code groups. Letters, numbers, and then mixed characters, including punctuation. Next. Transmitting tests are the same. And you can use your keying device of choice as long as it's not a keyboard. Nobody used a straight key. There were a lot of electronic keyers of various sorts, and paddles, some homemade, some commercial, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Next. The radio amateur practicing tests are 2 software programs. One is called Rufus, which is written by DL1MM, and it's a very good program to help you improve your CW. What it does is it sends call signs. You pick your starting speed. Every time you get the call sign correct, it sends the next one a few words per minute faster. If you get it wrong, it sends the next one a few words per minute slower. And there's an algorithm that scores this. The second part uses Morse runner, which is done by VE3NEA, I think it is, the same guy that did the skimmer software. And this is a pile-up competition. Next. So there are 3 different ways to track the speed. The traditional one that we use is words per minute. There's another system called Paris, which is sending the word Paris and then counting up how many times you can send it in a minute. And the third one is characters per minute, which is probably the fairest way to do it because numbers, mixed characters are longer as are numbers, and letters tend to be shorter. So you can see if for 100 characters per minute, the words per minute changes. Next. So these are some of the events that have taken place over the years. The first one was in 1983 in Moscow. Then there was a break, and then every 2 years or so, they were generally in Eastern Europe. And the first one I went to was in 2005 in Ohrid, Macedonia. I didn't go to 2007. I went again to 2009 in Bulgaria and 2011 in Germany. And that was my last one. Next. So this is a map of Macedonia. The way we got there, and my wife and younger daughter came with me, is we flew on Alitalia to Milan, changed planes, and flew to Skopje, which is the capital of Macedonia. Down in the lower left corner of the screen you can see Ohrid, and that's where the competition took place. The Lake Ohrid, is a UNESCO heritage site. It's one of the deepest and oldest lakes in Europe. And it borders Albania, which is to the west, and Greece to the south. Now, the way I convinced my wife to go to these things is I looked at the country and then looked for a surrounding country to travel to that we hadn't been to before. And then said, okay, we'll do this competition, which is 4 days long, and then we'll do a week in whatever country is nearby. So after the competition, we went to Greece and spent a week there. Next slide. This is beautiful downtown Skopje, the capital of Macedonia. The river is the Vardar, V-A-R-D-A-R. And this is the new part of the city that you're seeing here. Those buildings are communist era buildings. And across the river is the older city, which is the Muslim quarter. Next slide. And that's my wife, ex-wife and daughter. My daughter there is 13. She's now 31. And this was a very nice promenade right along the river. And cafes, we got some nice pizza there. Interestingly, the Macedonians put ketchup on their pizza. We did not. Next slide. And this is a view of the downtown area from a bridge on the river. The sign on the top of that building in front of the mountain is Skopsko, which is Cyrillic, which is their national beer. Next. And this is on the other side of the river, the Muslim side, and this is a fortress called Kale, K-A-L-E, which was first built in about 500 AD. Next. And another view of the Muslim quarter. A lot of these mosques appear brand new because they were funded by the Saudis, who provided money for them to rebuild. Next. A sign from downtown that says Mobimac, Macedonia, and that's their cell phone company, national cell phone company. Next. And this is the opening ceremony at the competition. The flag in front, the red and yellow, that looks like the sun with the rays around it, is the Macedonian flag. And you can see the other countries that were represented in the competition, including the Stars and Stripes. Next. So there was a presentation. LZ1US was the IARU Region 1 director. Sitting next to him is the president of the National Parliament. So this is a big deal. Standing in the background by the curtain is Oliver, Z32TO, who is the organizer of these competitions. And then Z32DB at the podium, who is the president of the Radio Society of Macedonia. Next slide. So after the presentation, there was a little folk festival. There's Team USA. Next. And then all the other teams are standing around waiting for the presentation to begin. Next, please. And they did a little folk dance there. Next. Next. Okay, and this is the hotel we stayed at on the lake. Interesting story behind the hotel, and there are some more pictures coming up later. Oliver, Z32TO, was tickled pink to finally have an American competitor at the competition. It made him feel like he hit the big time. So he referred to these buildings as the villas, and we were the only ones in there. Interestingly, they seemed to put the different competitors in different areas of the hotel based on the socioeconomic levels of the country. There were 3 areas: the villas, which I was the only one in. There was an old section of the hotel where the Eastern Europeans were, and then a newer section where the Western Europeans were. Next. And this is Lake Ohrid. Across the lake, you can almost see in the background some land there, and that's Albania. Next. So this is my wife and daughter sitting around while I'm in the competition. Next. And they finally found something to do. Next. This is Oliver. He's been the head honcho for years and years. And prior to the competition, he was calling me almost every day on the phone. And I said to him, Oliver, do you work for the phone company? And he says, yes, I do. Why? And he says, because you must have a big phone bill otherwise. And he said, no, don't worry about it. And he was great. He picked us up from the airport and did a wonderful job. Next. Okay. Some of the competitors sitting around. On the left is actually, the author of Rufus. It's actually DL4MM. I busted the call earlier. DJ5AA behind him, who's originally from East Germany and was a member of the Stasi. Frank, DL2CC, who I've actually known since my high school and college days. We were exchanging discs in Commodore 64 programs back then. And at that time, we didn't know each other well and didn't know we were both high-speed CW ops. And to the right of him, Hein, DL2OBF, another contester and excellent CW op. Next, please. Okay, some of the local guys. Sitting straight back, Ilya, LZ4UU, is an operator at Lima Zulu 9 Radio, one of the big multis there. To his right is Goran, YT7AW, who we'll get into a little bit more later. Next. This is some of the Macedonian team. The guy on the left is not a ham, and he's one of those guys who inserts himself into pictures, and I have no idea what he was doing there. The guy on the right I call Donald Sutherland's twin brother, and to his left is his son, who was a brilliant kid, knew more American history than I did, and will probably be prime minister of their country one year. Next. Clara, HA5BA, active contester. I work her just about every year in the DX contests. And by the way, ARRL DXCW is coming up this weekend. Next. One of the Czech guys, Macedonian, and UA3VBW. His name is Stan. I think he is now a silent key. And he won the senior competition every year. He was a machine, just listening and typing away on the keyboard. And of course, there's a guy who sticks himself in the picture. Next. A few more of the guys, Macedonian, Romanian, and a Belarusian. Next. Some more local guys here. Let's see if there's anybody of note. YU7NU is now YT6W. He operates a lot with Krassi, K1LZ, in a multi on the East Coast in the contests. Next. A couple of the Czech guys. The guy on the right was on for a number of years. I think he worked for an oil company from Algeria, 7X0RY. And he made the comment that about half the competitors in this thing weren't real hams. Now, in order to compete, if you were over 16 years old, you needed a ham license. So what some of the countries did, and the Russians were very cavalier about it, some of these guys were just professional CW ops, particularly Russia and Belarus. If you put a radio in front of them, they would have no idea how to use it. All they did was copy CW. And this guy was very upset by that and said, well, if you're not a real ham, you shouldn't be in it. And the Russians were so cavalier about it, there were a number of their people who had consecutive call signs and wouldn't know what a radio is. Next. Two of the young girls from Belarus, both of them could probably copy 100 words a minute. Next. A couple of more from Belarus. Next. These two young girls were from Macedonia. The one on the right at the time was the female world champion, and she could copy about 150 words per minute. Next. A couple of the German guys just hanging out, getting some sun. Next. Anybody who's active on the air has worked Lassie, HA3NU, great guy and his family who competed as well. Next. Everybody was socializing with the exception of the Belarus team. They had this extra room there and all they did was practice the whole time. Next. Okay, as I said earlier, as far as paddles go, These are some of the paddles that came from the Belarus team. And, the one on the right kind of reminds me of a Lionel train transformer I had as a kid. Most of them used a single paddle. Most of the guys who are really good at sending CW said it's too easy to make mistakes with an iambic paddle. And in later competitions, I tried using a single level paddle. I always used iambic, and I just couldn't get the hang of it. I could not send a period, da-da, da-da, da-da. I couldn't get it right. So I stuck with my iambic paddle. Next. This is the receiving competition. People are in a room. CW is transmitted from up front to some headphones. Next. And these are what the headphones were plugged into. Anybody who's been to Europe would recognize this connector as being the standard 220 volt European AC connector, but they used it for headphones. I don't think that would meet code in the US. Next. And these are the headphones. They were from Russia. And I felt like Uncle Fester when I had those on, like my head in a vice. Next. And this is copying. I forget what program I used for this, but that's my laptop on the lower left. And I would be copying these random code groups. And after the session, you had to transfer that into the computer that graded it, which was the screen up and to the right. Next. There's Stan from Russia, just getting ready there. The guy in front of him from Belarus, interesting story about him. This happened in the subsequent competition in 2007, but I got an email from one of the guys there who told me this guy was disqualified. One of the judges noticed that he was still typing like 30 seconds after the session ended. And it's normal to be a little behind, like 5 to 10 seconds. So they listened to his headphones, and he had built into his headphones a CW slower downer that slowed the code down so he could copy it better. And he was disqualified from the competition. It never became clear whether this was state-sponsored or not. Next. And for those who can type, the Eastern Europeans came up with a shorthand system. So what they did is they copied it by hand in this shorthand and then transferred it into the program from there. Next. This is the transmitting section. Very nerve-wracking. The room was about 90 degrees because it wasn't air conditioned and the sun was beating in from the windows there. And you're sitting at this table and 3 judges are listening to you send CW from off text on a page in front of you. And it's a lot tougher than you would think. Next. Okay, after the competition, which took the first 2 days, there is an excursion. So we were all got on this boat on Lake Ohrid. Next slide. And that's a picture of the hotel. The ones on the right were the villas where we stayed. The center section was the Eastern European hangout, and the section on the left was where the Western Europeans were. Next slide. And we were going to a monastery right on the border of Macedonia and Albania. And that little piece of land that's jutting out is the border between the two countries. Next. Now there's an Albanian cruise ship in the background. Next. And this is the Saint Naum, N-A-U-M monastery, which was built in the 800s. Next. And this was the border between Albania and Macedonia. Of course, I had to stick my foot into Albania to say I've been to Albania. There were no guards or anything in this area here. Next slide. Okay, another picture of the monastery. Next. Another monastery picture. Next. And they, Macedonia was basically 2 religions, Eastern Orthodox and Muslim. Next. Typical Eastern Orthodox picture there. Next. And there's me and Oliver hanging out at the edge. Next. And this is downtown Ohrid. Next. Next. This is St. Cyril and St. Methodius. St. Cyril is the one who created the Cyrillic alphabet. Next. And every city in Europe seems to have a Roman amphitheater dug up from somewhere. And here's the one in Ohrid that dates back to the Roman Empire. Next. A view from on top of the hill of the lake in the city. Next. And this is the award ceremony at the end. Class A are the young girls. The one on the right is now the female world champion. Interesting story about her. From Skopje to Ohrid was about a 2-hour bus ride through the mountains. And she was sitting with, I don't know if it was her sister or her mother, in the row behind us. And my daughter was reading a Teen Vogue magazine. And they seemed very interested in it. So we wound up trading the Teen Vogue for a little Petrushka doll that the girl had. Next. 2 from Belarus and 1 Russian there. Next. Belarus, Russia, and Romania. Next. Belarus, Romania. You see the pattern here. Next. Russia and Belarus. Next. And Belarus, Belarus, Russia. Interesting story about the guy on the left, EU7KI. His name is Andrei Bindasov. And if you look up in the Guinness Book of Records, the fastest Morse code guy, he's the one who's in the book. He is the coach and trainer, or was the coach and trainer for the Belarus team. He has been trying to move to the US for about 20 years. And about 5 years ago, I got a phone call from Oliver, the guy who runs the competition. And he says to me, "Have you heard from Andre?" And I said, "No, why?" And he said, "He moved to Denver." I said, "Are you joking?" And he said, "No." So actually, he moved to Aurora, to a Russian community there. And I brought him to the Rocky Mountain Convention at Keystone about 5 years ago, I think it was, and introduced him to some of the guys. And he didn't seem too interested. Again, he's not a real ham, but he wanted to try to create a winning USCW team, but it never came to fruition. I haven't spoken to him for several years, so I don't know where he is or what he's doing now. Next slide. As we go up in age here, the older women. Next. Older men. Serbia, Russia, and Serbia. Next. And this is the certificate I got. So I came in 5th place in what? Can't quite read it. Category I, which is the senior category. And was that the pile-up competition? Yeah, okay. All right, next slide. Then at the end of the competition, Oliver gave me a gold medal. And he just said, "I want you to have this." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "For coming here." And that was that. So that was my first gold medal for doing nothing. Next slide. Okay, here is the final team competition. From year to year, it tends to be similar at the top. Belarus, Russia, Romania, Hungary, Czech, depending on the size of the team. We came in 12th. We weren't last. And that was just me. Next. And let's see, I'm on there somewhere. Okay, I'm number 10 in the category overall. Okay, next. And these are just some of the teams. Jeff, you can just go through these one by one. Belarus team, and you see the difference in the size of the teams there. Hungary, Czech, Russia, Romania, and Team USA. Next. Okay, 2007, it was in Serbia. Nobody went to that one. Next. 2009, I actually put a team together for this one. Starting on the left, Cody, K3ODY, who is the son of Ken, KE3X. Cody is now in the Marines. I forget what rank. There's me, W5ZL, who is now a silent key, and KE7OPG, Ilya, who works for Microsoft in Washington State. He's originally from Russia and competed in his younger days for the Russian team. Next. So this is Obzor, Bulgaria, which is on the east coast of Bulgaria, right on the Black Sea. It was a very nice hotel complex. You can see the pool there, and behind that is the Black Sea. Next. And okay, interesting story about the two guys in the middle here. DJ1YFK, Fabian, and Goran, YT7AW, both active contesters. They look human, but they are the only two guys who have ever broken 200 words per minute in the call sign copying part of this competition. Now, at the time, I could copy over 100, and when I listen to 200, it just sounds like a blip to me. I couldn't believe it. It's amazing that the synapses in the brain can fire that quickly to separate the dots and dashes. Next. Okay, I did a little better this time. Got a silver medal in the pile-up competition. Next. And these are the team results. And let's see, where are we? Well, we moved up. We're number 9 this time. Okay, next. Okay, 2 years later, the competition was in Germany. The team shrunk a little bit. It was me, Cody, and Ken. Next. And in this one, I won the gold medal in the pile-up competition and was the first non-European ever to win a gold medal in the competition. Next. 2013, it was in Bulgaria again. Already been there, didn't want to go back. Oh, by the way, when the competition, the first time it was in Bulgaria, the way I convinced my wife to go is we went to Turkey for a week before the competition. And Krasi, K1LZ, has a company in Bulgaria. He's originally from Bulgaria, and he's a part owner of ACOM, the amplifier company. And he was kind enough to provide the 5 of us with a van for the whole 2 weeks. They drove us wherever we wanted to go in Turkey, took us across the border into Bulgaria, anywhere we wanted to sightsee there as well. Tried to get the ARRL to sponsor the competition and even host it here in the United States, but Dave Sumner said, no, it's just not going to happen. The other thing, too, is there were a couple of younger kids who were interested. There was a Colin, NU5B, who at the time was a college student, and there was a high school kid, too, I think from Nineland. And we wanted them to go, but they didn't have the money to do it. And, you know, there was no support for them, so they couldn't go. Next. Okay, 2015, it was back in Macedonia, so I did not go. And, you know, after that point, the interest just waned, and, you know, that was kind of the end of it. Next, I think that may be the end. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it looks like that's the last one.
Okay, so that's the competition. Any questions about the competition or CW in general? A few comments. First, as far as improving CW speed, the best thing to do is get on the air and operate. It's the best way to increase your CW speed. If you are the type of person who copies a letter and then writes it down on paper and then looks at it when the word is complete, you got to get away from that. You got to learn to copy it in your head and just hear the letter and listen to it and put it together like a language. As your speed increases, you'll start hearing small words as one symbol, such as and or to. And then as the speed gets even faster, you'll be just kind of sounding out syllables in your head. There's a good website written by Fabian, DJ1YFK. I think it's lcwo.org, Learn CW Online. I'm not sure the suffix. So if it's not .org, it's something, .com or .net. So that's another thing to do. So with that, I'll leave it open for any questions or comments.
Let me just say that Jeff, if you didn't see it, excuse me, Jeff put up the drawing there, so yeah, you can go to the chat and do that if you're so inclined. That's it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it looks like that domain LCOW is not active.
LCWO.
Oh, LCWI. Okay.
Learn CW Online. Let me check. I got my desktop next to me here. LCWO.
Looks like it's .net.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yes, that's it. .net. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Barry.
Yes.
Yes, this is Dave, WG0N. Do you have anything that you could show us to let us hear the speed of 60 or 100?
Sure. Let me see if I can do this.
Daron, is that something you could find? You've got a better audio link to meet than Barry might be able to do.
I can bring up my CW typing program and give me a minute here. I may get feedback. Let's see what happens. No, that's not working. It doesn't. I may get feedback. Let's see what happens. Let me try with my keyer. Hang on. Probably not loud enough. Now I won't stretch that forward to my laptop. All right, here's another idea is this Saturday. Oh no, this Saturday is the contest, so we won't be doing it this weekend. The following weekend, 7017 at 6 p.m. There'll be a bunch of guys there at about 60 words per minute.
Okay, and what time did you say?
6 p.m. local time.
Okay.
What day of the week was that? Saturday?
Saturday and usually Sunday as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions for Barry?
This was very interesting, Barry. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it really is.
Sure, and if you want to hear the CW2, you can download the two programs I had. I thought I had a slide with the links for it, but apparently not. Just do a Google search on Morse Runner. That's the pile-up one, and you can set it at any speed you want. And then the other one is Rufus, R-U-F-Z. And let me type that into Google and see if it comes up here. Yeah, you can download the program. And
Is
that
there,
one
is there any nefarious impetus for the Russians or the Belarusians to be as proficient at code as they are?
Well, the history behind it and the history of the 5 character code groups goes back to the KGB. and copying encrypted code groups. For example, the guy Stan, the senior guy who won it every year while he was alive and competing, he worked for the KGB, copying encrypted code groups. Now, the amazing thing about these guys too is they can flip a switch in their head and go from copying international Morse to copying Cyrillic Morse.
Wow.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thanks for all the information. Any other questions? We'll do our drawing and kick you all loose.
We need to get Barry to join the club, become our high-speed code.
Well, you live close to it.
I'll work on him.
Work on it. Okay, well, everybody. Yeah. Russian guy. KF0E, I think. Yeah. He lives up in Broomfield. I don't know if he's a 60 word a minute guy, but he's really good. Okay, everybody had a chance to get in the drawing that wants
We got
to?
a whole 6 responses so far.
Oh, wow. Well, that cuts the odds, doesn't it? Last chance to get in the drawing, anybody? If not, I'll have Jeff push the button and it'll pick us a winner. So I guess I didn't hear anybody, so go for it.
I just randomized the range, and the winner is Paul, KD9URM.
KD9. I can't write. KD9URM. Paul.
Congrats, Paul.
Okay, well, congrats, Paul.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
The odds are pretty good when they're 6. Okay, well, Barry, we really appreciate it. Love to meet you and talk sometime. That's like I say, I love CW, but I'll never I'll never be there for sure. But any final questions? If not, we'll call it an evening. Thanks everybody for. I think we got 28 there right now, so we had a pretty decent turnout tonight. And thanks again, Barry. We really
You're welcome.
appreciate your time.
Sure.
Oh, okay. Well, we've looked into it, but it's a lot to put together, and it's like I say, still working on it, location and all the details, and some of our concern is that how many people really want to come out. Everybody's so in tune to doing everything online, and it's a lot of work to put on a face-to-face meeting and have it online also. We don't, anybody went to the RM University last Saturday, or anybody that's ever been and see the equipment. Now, you don't need the extent of what they've got to do that, but it's just not a easy thing to do, to put together and gather everything you need to do it. So it's still in the works, but I can't give you, we're going to do it in next month. Probably not, but we're still working on details.
And the county is no longer allowing any evening
Yeah.
meetings at the courts and admin building. So that's a no.
Jeff has checked on that a couple times for us, and they just won't budge on that. I don't know if they ever will.
One idea that we did kick around at the board meeting was perhaps instead of trying to do a face-to-face meeting, hybrid meeting, would be just to perhaps have a social hour sometime,
Mm-hmm.
meet somewhere and socialize.
We could, the problem with another group that I belong to, that all these restaurants and stuff are all, for the most part, are charging, for the room and by the hour. And, it makes it, we could do something at Highlands where we have our Christmas, possibly, and maybe cater something or have, like firehouse sub sandwiches or do something like that. But
That's one
there,
thing just came to mind, Jerry, was, given the demographic of our club, do we need to make these evening meetings, or could we just do a breakfast or something somewhere, or a lunch during the week, or maybe we need to do a survey on that.
we can do that. We can
Frank
do
says
that.
IHOP on Wadsworth has free meeting rooms.
IHOP on Wadsworth.
One down in Belmar, Frank?
Okay.
He said
Yes.
yes.
Okay. That's an idea.
Get my pigs in a blanket.
There you go. Well, we'll work on some of this stuff. Like I say, you got ideas, you got suggestions, shoot them to us, and there's something we probably hasn't even thought about. With people buying, well, yeah, and I doubt if they'd let you just come in and have a glass of water. So, okay. Kathy and I found we had a place in mind, but it doesn't come to me right now. So, well, okay. Well, thanks everybody. Anything else?
Thanks again, Barry.
Yeah, Barry, thank you. And like I say, I'd love to talk to you sometime.
Glad to do
Okay,
it.
everybody, good night. Thanks for joining in, and we'll see you next time. Adios.